What is the Oklahoma Santa Claus Commission? How did it start? What happened to it? Is it still a thing? Howdy, I'm Brian. Welcome to my channel where I share animated Oklahoma stories. In 1935, State Budget Officer R.R. Owens visited the orphanage at Helena and discovered that Oklahoma's orphans were being forgotten on Christmas. I don't know how it happened. Maybe confusion because of the Dust Bowl storms, the black blizzards. Owens and his wife were sad to see that the orphans didn't have a real Christmas. With the help of friends, janitors, prisoners, and delinquent girls, Owens and his wife obtained presents for all the kids in that orphanage. The following year, they put out milk bottles and fruit jars around state buildings and got even more help, allowing them to expand their gift-giving efforts to other state-run orphanages. They started something that people cared about. It wasn't enough to give the kids just any old present. They wanted to give the kids the present they actually desired. They also wanted to expand further to cover orphans in state-funded homes as well. In 1937, R.R. Owens and Paul Colvert convinced State Representative Sandy Singleton to introduce a bill and State Senator Richard Engel to co-sponsor it. While many thought it was a joke at first, it passed, creating the Santa Claus Commission tasked with providing gifts to orphans in Oklahoma's orphanages. It was the only program of its kind anywhere. The orphans would write Dear Santa letters listing their top 3 requested items, and the commission would try to get them at least one of the things they wanted. If they requested a doll with brown curly hair and blue eyes, that's what they would try to get. This was not a cookie-cutter operation. Funding was a combination of state money, private donations, and when necessary, the commissioners reaching into their own pockets. For this reason, the commissioners appointed by the governor to play Santa Claus were all wealthy. Oil millionaires, bankers, cattlemen, etc. Prominent chairmen of the Santa Claus Commission included people like Earl P. Halliburton and Frank Phillips. Phillips said, "I'd rather be Santa Claus to the orphans than be governor of Oklahoma or even be president of the U.S." Halliburton, as first chairman, set a high bar. He flew the commissioners to all the orphanages in his own twin-engine plane to see what the conditions were like and what the needs were. Halliburton challenged his other commissioners to see who could raise the most money from their hometowns. I believe Halliburton won. In at least one year, Halliburton personally paid for all the 13-year-old girls to get lipstick, because he remembered that's what his daughter wanted at that age. Every year he donated a couple thousand pounds of English walnuts for the kids' stockings. In addition to the ample supply of nuts, stockings usually included candy and fruit. The person actually buying all this stuff for the 3,000 orphans was the executive secretary, Mrs. Jessie M. Fountain. All year she bought toys, games, books, clothes, candy, anything that would please a child. $2 per child may not sound like much, but she sought out bargains and used her special relationships with Oklahoma City stores to get the best deals and make the money go farther. She was called Mrs. Claus because around October every year she would take over a room in the state capitol, filling it with all the toys and presents. She, her assistants, and other state employees on loan from other departments would wrap all the festive packages. They used to say that Santa Claus had a headquarters in the Oklahoma State Capitol. Once everything was wrapped, state employees would drive the boxes to orphanages in Department of Transportation trucks. On Christmas, every orphan would hear their name called and receive a specially wrapped gift just for them with their name on it. It was possibly the only gift they received all year long. Showing them that the community cared went a long way. The Dear Santa letters and the thank you notes the orphans wrote let everyone involved know that the endeavor was worth it. Here's some examples of the gifts they gave in the past. Things changed in later decades. Orphanages were replaced by the foster care system. Young people were more likely to be in state institutions due to crime, abuse, or disability. The commission overstepped its bounds by providing gifts to non-orphans, and that is when a Grinch stepped in. He was State Representative Denver Talley. Talley was asked if he tired of being portrayed as the Grinch from the Dr. Seuss stories. His response was, "Not when we throw money away like that. The people in my district would prefer we not raise taxes when we spend money like that." Appropriations for the commission had hit a peak of $7,500, and he thought that way too high. He objected strongly to giving taxpayer money to buy gifts for people who may have committed serious crimes. For years, he repeatedly tried to kill the commission. He even floated the idea of prosecuting the Santa Claus Commissioners for giving gifts to non-orphans. Talley asked the Attorney General 3 questions. Was the commission limited to giving gifts to orphans? Yes. Was it improper for them to give the gifts to inmates of correctional facilities? Yes. Would improper expenditures subject the commissioners to prosecution or repayment of funds? Yes. After realizing the commissioners had violated the law, the legislature changed the law. Simple solution, right? It was expanded to permit the commission to purchase a Christmas gift for every child who's residing in a state institution, whether they're an orphan or not. While the Grinch failed to kill the commission, a decline had started. Budgets were cut, and appropriations would ultimately reach 0, leaving the modern Santa Claus Commission to rely solely on contributions, and interest from those contributions. In 1996, the commission was moved under the auspices of the Office of Juvenile Affairs. There hasn't been a room full of toys in the capital for a long time. Often the same gifts are given to everyone to avoid conflicts. The number of youths receiving gifts is much lower than the earlier 3,000. Here's some examples of the gifts they've given in recent years. One of the reasons for the duffel bags was that the young people being discharged were often carrying their possessions around in a trash bag. The duffel bags make for a much nicer send-off. The goal of the Oklahoma Santa Claus Commission was to see that children in state institutions were not forgotten and would receive a kindness at least once a year. It still does that. Some argue that the time and effort put into the Santa Claus Commission could be better spent on education or rehabilitation. In recent years, the Santa Claus Commission has relied on word of mouth to solicit donations and maintains a small fund. For those wanting to support at-risk youth, the Oklahoma Office of Juvenile Affairs takes donations online. Link is in the description. Here's some additional stuff that I found that you might find interesting. In 1938, a state officer proposed a novel way to raise money for the Santa Claus Commission: a convict football game between the inmates of the Granite Reformatory and the McAllister State Penitentiary, right before Christmas. It was going to be called the Gun Bowl. The wardens had objections to busing the prisoners to Oklahoma City. The McAllister warden said his team would be willing to play, but it would be dangerous. No one wanted to accept the liability, so it was called off. There was no gun bowl. Here is an objection made to the original Santa Claus bill back in 1937 by someone who voted against it. Mr. Speaker, this is the most nefarious piece of legislation this House has seen in a long time. There's a deep, dark plot behind it. There are plenty of good and conscientious ladies in this state who delight in seeing that its orphans don't go hungry and toyless on Christmas. Would you deprive them of the joy of their customary ministrations? The state is playing Santa Claus to too many people as it is. I urge you, gentlemen, ha, 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 to kill this ridiculous bill. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more cartoons like this, subscribe, like this video, leave a comment. It will help me out.